Welcome to Universal Theory, where the goal is to find a common language between the abstract and concrete. We are the unorthodox representation of physics and metaphysics. During the time that we have with you, we will discuss all that is potential and equally possible. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Trent.
And together, we are Universal Theory. We welcome you on this journey of scientific and metaphysical exploration, and we hope that any information that is conveyed or professed by either of us is of the utmost importance, value, and of practical use in your everyday lives.
Welcome to Universal Theory. I'm your co-host Trent. Joining me today is Jordan. As always, we are Universal Theory. Season 1, Episode 1, right? Before we get into that, how are you feeling?
Feeling good.
Feeling good? Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too, man. How's everybody feeling out there? Let me know in the comments below how you're feeling. You know, give back some of that energy that we're putting in. Because this is Season 1, Episode 1, we're going to do some background on both of us. We are going to be talking about the universal symbol, the circle and the dot, today. And one other thing, our merch. It's raw, isn't it? Our logo.
This is super nice.
Check this out. This will be either in the description or somewhere down below. If you want one, come get one. These are super nice.
Yeah, shout out to King Saul.
Yeah, shout out to King Saul for making the logo. Anyways, so some background on me. I was a weird kid compared to most of my friends. And when you went into my room as a kid, it wasn't posters of Michael Jordan or half-naked women. It was, some Buddhist philosophy, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path was just right on my ceiling. So when I woke up, I would read that. And then I wrote those, I think, I was like 14 or something. And those stayed up there for a while. And that was kind of how I lived. I would Google, what is God in the cafeteria. And life just, I lost somebody close to me. Life got hard. And as I was kind of picking the pieces back up, I met Jordan, and we've known each other now for about, it's going on 11 years. It's just over a decade. Mm-hmm. But then as I continued to pick the pieces up, I went back to school, got my degree in physics with a minor in mathematics and computer science. I never forgot the mystic experiences that I had when I was younger. And when I was in school, I would see the professors talk about these profound realities and these profound equations. But when I'd say something about it, it was, Trent, stop it. Hey, Trent, we'll talk after class. Or they would say, just never mind, don't worry about that. And then I would go talk to Jordan, and then I'd come back to the professor, and me and him would have a really philosophical, deep conversation. They just weren't quite sure that was what I was looking for at first, and there isn't time for that during class anyways. Shout out to Dr. Sahami if you ever see this. And yeah, so I'm here because I had the mystical experiences. I have the physical knowledge. So I'm more of the left brain, even though I have a bit of the right in me. Jordan's more of the right brain, even though he has the left in him as well. And when I go to look for information about mysticism online, it's just nowhere to be found. Nothing that I can grab onto that has data behind it, that has research papers that you can go look at. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we're trying to provide. So that's why I'm here, to give you, the listener, something to hold on to if you are in a academia mindset and you kind of have always kind of believed in mysticism, but you never really went all the way in because there wasn't anything out there like this. So yeah, we're passionate about it. Jordan and I talk all the time, every day, about how physics and metaphysics can be married once again. And yeah, that's why I'm here. So I hope you guys enjoy. We're going to give Jordan a little time to talk about his backstory and then into the circle and the dot.
So my name is Jordan, aka the Mad Scientist, aka Genesis the God, because I'm also a musician, but we'll talk about that another time. For now, my background in metaphysics is at least 15 years of ardent studying and practicing and implementation and embodiment of mystical ideologies. And when I was younger, I was always in tune naturally with spiritual concepts without exactly knowing what it was, or even being able to apply a name to it. But I've had a wide range of experiences, from involuntary astral travel to astral travel voluntarily, and intuition, insight, premonitions. I've had prophecies come true, etc., which, are things that I seen in my consciousness as like foresight for things to come, and some have happened, some have not. So these are just experiences that I've had, and I've done my best to try to find information that can validate or invalidate my experience, because a lot of times we can believe in something and potentially adhere to it without really having any validity behind it. And not to say that that's a bad thing, but if you want to become a teacher and a professor of the arts, then you have to have some type of data to back it in the modern world. So we're not in an age where we can just profess things and potentially fabricate our own realities and not actually be expounding upon, nature and what is actually happening, versus some, type of delusion that we may suffer from. So my background is in metaphysics. Like he said, I'm the right brain, but I'm also have a bit of the left, and we're just trying to unify these two sciences and these different perceptions of these concepts into a singular whole and into a homogeneous form for the listener, so that anyone that is going through what we went through trying to unify these two can find some solace in what we're seeking to provide.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're here. And speaking of that, the circle and the dot. Season 1, episode 1. Jordan's going to start out with some of the history. So the idea is to speak about the circle and the dot, how it's a universal symbol, how it's a global symbol, and then some modern physics and some modern mathematics that allow these two seemingly different ideas to be one. And then we'll spitball at the end.
So in ancient times, there was once a global culture, and this global culture was a manifestation of the human mind delving deep into nature and experiencing reality to the utmost, because we didn't have all of the modern societal structures to act as a buffer between us and it. And in this global culture, you find symbolism, which is one of the greatest universal building tools. And one of the primary universal building tools or symbols was the circle and the dot, or what we would call today the circumpunct. So the circumpunct is a circle with a dot in the middle, and it's a mathematical symbol. In ancient times, it was a symbol for spirituality. And one of the locations that I would like to start with is Mesopotamia. In Mesopotamia, you see the circumpunct, or the circle and the dot, in the form of the ring and the rod. And in the Bernie relief, a Mesopotamian terracotta, meaning that it's earthen baked, so it's made from clay. In Mesopotamia, you find the Bernie relief, which is the queen of the night, which is either Ishtar or Aresh Kagau. And Aresh Kagau is the older sister of Ishtar, and they're not sure exactly which one it is actually.
Right.
So it's one of the two. Ishtar is the goddess of descent. She, you might be familiar with her descending through the 7 celestial planes. Very similar to the concept of descent in Hermeticism, descending through the planetary spheres. But anyways, she's depicted as a naked winged goddess with talons as feet, perched upon two lions and situated between two owls. And in one hand, she has the ring and she has the rod. And this was a symbol of power and authority. And then you also see it in the Code of Hammurabi, Hammurabi being the sixth king of the first dynasty of Babylon. And you see it depicted in the Code of Hammurabi. So anybody that's wanting to inquire about this text, then go research it and you'll find the ring and the rod being mentioned. Then you also see it in the fourth tablet of the Enuma Elish, which is the Babylonian creation epic. And in the fourth tablet, you see the installation of Marduk as king, and he receives the staff or the rod, the throne, and the ring. Once again, it's a symbol of power and authority given from what they would call the gods at the time to the kings to establish them as rulers. And then you also see it in Ahura Mazda in the Zoroastrian culture. You see Ahura Mazda with his winged disc, and you see in his hand a ring, and then below him is a line. And Ahura Mazda in this depiction is supposedly symbolic to the Fravashi and the Irvan, which is the spirit, and the soul, which is also equivalent to the circle and the dot. You also see it in the Egyptian culture, or in the Kemetic culture. You see Shin, which is a circle with a line tangent to it. You also see the Shinu, which is what the cartouche evolved from, which is more oval shaped with a line tangent to it. And within it you have hieroglyphs referring to the pharaoh, etc., and their accomplishments. But this symbol was universal. And, you know, one more thing, you see it in astrology, the circle and the dot for the sun, and then you also see it as the symbol in alchemy for gold. So I'm going to pass it off to Trent, and he's going to elaborate on this, but this is where we see the circumpunct in a multitude of different forms, and in other cultures as well, but it was a symbol that was used to describe spirituality and someone's dominion over the physical world.
Yeah, and if you look, just kind of think back to chemistry class, you know, whenever you took that in high school or middle school, and you remember how they showed the atom. It was, you know, the nucleus in the center with the electrons whizzing around it. We know that's not exactly how it is today, but there's the symbol again. You know, it's kind of used to teach. And going back to the Shin, a tangent line to a circle only touches that circle in one point. So there's your dot where that line touches the circle. And when you have the ring and the rod, just another aspect of the circle and the dot that Jordan brought up, you can think about the rod as, you know, kind of looking at it head on, and well, there's the dot, and then the circle that's being held, the ring that's being held, right? That's the circle. Another way you can kind of put these two together is the circle, right? If you take the circle and you put the dot on the circumference, and then it starts to travel around the circle, and you flash a light on it, well, the shadow from that dot will be a line just moving up and down, right? So there's the rod again. So we can see through math and that's a linear transformation. It's transferring it from circular space to linear space. We can see that this circle and the dot is present. And we also see it in modern physics. We see it right now with nuclear fusion. We see it with the diagram of 192 lasers, all putting the equal and proper pressure on hydrogen in the center, creating helium. There's the circle and the dot again. The diagram is showing us. And what happens with nuclear fusion? We get clean energy from that. So that's kind of what's happening nowadays, where we just saw that. And if you're following our post, we posted about it. Another place where I saw it in physics was special relativity with the collapse of the, wave function. And to speak about that a little bit, a photon is a wave and a particle, if you haven't heard. Excuse me. So what happens is when you observe it or measure this photon, it's going to collapse from a wave-like structure to a particle, and that's what we say. That is the Copenhagen interpretation. The Copenhagen interpretation is it collapses from a wave, which is described by the Schrödinger equation, Erwin Schrödinger. That is the state of it when it's in a wave, and then when we see it, it's a particle. The Schrödinger equation no longer applies, and that's what Niels Bohr kind of pushed into academia, right? He was the guy that was the proponent for that. Nowadays, we understand that that's not necessarily the case. There's other interpretations. There's the Everett interpretation or the many worlds interpretation, which basically says, hey, if the Schrödinger equation is right, why are we messing with it? That is the math. It's always right with the probability. So why are we throwing it out the window when it collapses to a particle? Maybe what we're seeing is just one aspect of, if the probability is 25%, 50%, 25% to be in these different states, and we see one of those, well, maybe those two other states have to exist somewhere. That's what the equation is telling us. So many worlds, right? They exist in a different world. Shout out to Sean Carroll. He's a big proponent of that, and he teaches about that and lectures about that. So yeah, then that goes into quantum field theory. It goes into how an electron is different than a basketball. We're kind of taught that it's that it's like a basketball, but really that's not what's happening. An electron is kind of distributed throughout space. It's not local like a basketball is. And if you take that Schrödinger equation that explains the electron and you square it, it gives you the probability of where it's going to be. A basketball is always going to be where it is. If you give it some velocity and you tell me how long it's been in flight with that velocity, I can tell you where it's going to be. An electron, you can't do that. That's the differences here. So yeah, that's what we're trying to get across to you, is that we can take these ancient symbols and we can see them now. We see how, as science progresses, these concepts become more and more important in science. And the problem is on Instagram or wherever the social medias, wherever you might be getting this information, you might be being misinformed. And we have been posting about this subject, and we've actually had a troll calling us and texting us, and he FaceTimed me. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this message that was left when he called.
Bam! Yeah, what's up? Western Yogi got the West Side mudras popping off, you know what I'm saying? Like, fresh about the shower, no monkey business, popping tags, popping collars. But look, I'm gonna let y'all know right now, when y'all talking about, y'all don't know the science with the P and the Y and the S and the inch. So let me get down to it. If you take a square and then you cut the corners of it off, you got a circle. And then if you cut the circle in half, you have a C, right? But if you put two C's together, you got a pair of handcuffs. And that's how you lock the truth down. You know what I'm saying? So I'm about to drop some heavy stuff with you right now. So look, Circumpunct, me and him go way, way back, like before the cosmos existed. So like, his real name was Circum, because we used to call him, that was how he got a hold of him on the cosmic ether line, you know what I'm saying? So somebody punked him one day, so we started calling him Circumpunct. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't really want to get in his business, but when the circle first came into existence, I put the dot in it. You know what I'm saying? Western Yogi status. So if y'all want that science, y'all better come holler at me. I'm gonna go back to shower time, no monkey business. I'll see you later.
Yeah, just hung up on us, and that's what we're up against right now. So that's why we need you to share this video get the truth out. Don't let the Western yogi lock the truth down, like he talks about. Yeah, that's what we're up against. So, so what we're trying to do to avoid these types of situations is we want to create a language. We want to create some definitions, some words that we can agree that don't have a scientific definition, don't have a metaphysical definition. If it does, we'll hyphenate the words to have a better understanding. So that way, when we're speaking to different people from different backgrounds, we can all have a universal understanding.
Yeah, we can have a meeting place of the minds where we can all agree upon basic premises using similar words or the same words with the same definitions.
Yeah. And with the circle and the dot, that's kind of what we're trying to do. And the circle and the dot has some amazing uses in physics, as we talked about, and we see it all throughout history. And just to make sure we're on the same page, it's the circle is the wave, right? And then, or God. And then the dot is man or the particle.
Or creation, etc.
Right. Yeah. And you can apply it kind of on different scales, and you can use it just like you do a frame of reference, right? In physics, a frame of reference is just if I see a train going by, the train is moving, but if I'm on the train, it looks like a person is moving. That's standing stationary. So you can use kind of the circle and the dot in the same way. And we were speaking the other day about how the circle and the dot relates to God and man. And just to kind of talk about our definition of God real quick, our definition of God is just the force around us, what's happening around us and to us. So it's not a person in the sky. It's more of what the ancients believed God was and less of what religion has kind of turned it into.
Yes.
Do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in ancient times, God was this infinite pre-existing force, which some would call a mind. And, in Hermeticism or in the Kemetic sciences, because Hermeticism comes from the Kemetic sciences, you have the Kybalion, which we will also be suggesting that people read if they want to follow the next 7 or 8 episodes of this podcast. But you have the all is mind, the universe is mental. So when they say the all is mind, they're referring to what scientists refer to as the wave. And the wave is in superposition. So everything that exists as a potential state. And essentially that's how the ancients looked at the creator. The creator was not necessarily a creator per se, but an ever-existing force or mind that pervaded all space and time, all people, places, and things. And this acted like a pressure, like the lasers in this scenario where we talk about nuclear fusion and the 192 lasers. It acted as a pressure upon all of these things that exist within space and time. And when I say space and time, I'm not just referring to the physical universe or the multiverse. They said that, through the law of correspondence, this applies as above, so below. So this pressure wave of potential acted upon all things in all dimensions, in all worlds, etc. Now, scientists also alludes to other worlds and other dimensions, etc. So it's not far-fetched to think that people may have had access to these things, but when they had access to these things, they were discovering God. As they discovered themselves, they discovered God, because God was this wave of potential that was, for some, in mysticism or religion, etc., they say that God is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. And it's the same way with scientists. They have a very similar definition of nature. Nature is comprised of energy, and energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So technically it's eternal. In theory, we would say that it's infinite, even though they might not describe it in that way because infinite means that we would have to be able to tangibly measure it, and to tangibly measure infinity would be to disqualify it.
Right, exactly.
So, they're using a more inductive approach versus a deductive approach.
Yeah.
But, this is also, these two approaches are symbolic to the wave, deducing, and the particle, inducing.
Yeah, exactly. And we see this circle, this wave, affecting this dot or this particle. And how it affects us it's in a multitude of ways, but the main way that I like to think of it as is being selfish. I am selfish in my spiritual journey because the more that I am in tune with this process that's happening around me, the less harmful chemicals I'm going to release. Right? Our brain is very powerful, and it can release chemicals that can literally kill you. Right? It can cause pain and suffering, or you can allow your environment to not release those chemicals, and then you'll start to become more in tune with this force, and you start to release chemicals that are healthy and they're healing. And that is kind of how I see it, is when you do that, that is when the fusion happens. When that energy is released, your body's releasing that energy, and with nuclear fusion, it's clean energy. Right? We might not have nuclear fusion in our infrastructure around us for, for 10, 20, 30 years. But symbolically, it relates to us releasing this positive energy, these neurochemicals in our body.
Exactly. Like cortisol, for example. If we react to our environment in an inimical way or in a way that is harmful to us, we produce these harmful stress chemicals, which get secreted from our body into the atmosphere and can be absorbed by other individuals. Science has shown that people can absorb this stress, so to speak, or they can absorb these chemicals which can induce stress.
Yeah.
And then that's like you becoming the circle and imposing your will on another dot.
Yes.
Because like he said, it's a frame of reference. So the circle and the dot applies to everything. And when it applies to an individual, for example, that wave, like he said, it acts as a pressure, and and then we perceive this pressure through our sensory mechanisms, and then we react in relationship to how developed the mechanism is, which is relative to evolution and the sum total of all things that your genome has experienced, and everything that your genome has experienced to create the specific genomic imprint that you are.
Yep.
So this wave is what, back to, we talked about like what God was to the ancients. This wave of pressure was nature. And in Kabbalah, for example, the creator, the word that they use for creator is Borei. Borei means come see. So they weren't referring to an individual, they were referring to a developmental process, coming to see. And then a Sanskrit term they have, or word they have, is ad hoc saja, which means to suppress or defeat any attempt to intellectualize the process or the creator, meaning that you have to experience it. So it's not just a person, it's an experience that we have. And in physics, that's essentially what the wave is. It's in a state of superposition, and it creates possibilities, and those possibilities become probabilities. And then that becomes our reality. And the more effectively we engage reality, the more efficient we become as individuals to reciprocate individuals, people, places, and things within space and time. It's all about the evolution of the mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we see this. You can see the evolution everywhere. If you can see the circle and the dot everywhere, right? You see this symbol in logos. You see it in Target, right? You see it in evolutionary processes. You see it in physics. We see it in diagrams. It's just one of these things that you can't get away from. And try it. The person listening at home, just start thinking, use this tool to start thinking about things in your life and how the circle is affecting you as the dot and how you could maybe use that to your advantage and how you see it outside of your life, how you see it anywhere. And then put in the comment section below where you might experience this, right? Where you might have seen this. Exactly. I'd be interested to see what kind of lists we get.
Oh yeah.
And just kind of our closing thoughts on this. We are here for you. If you think, the circle and the dot, he's talking about ancient cultures and these different places where it's seen, I don't quite understand. Just look it up. If you don't quite understand, we'll be there to help you. Ask in the comment section below. Same thing with what I'm saying. Quantum mechanics and a photon, and we're here for you. Ask down below. We want to build a community. We don't want you to ever have that self-doubt, because that self-doubt is that same thing we were just talking about. Don't let that environment creep up on you and tell you that you can't do something and start creating those chemicals that aren't healthy for you. Say, yes, I can understand this. Say, yes, I do want to learn this, and I'm going to put forth the effort, and I'm going to do the research. They said to get the Kybalion. I'll get the Kybalion. I'll start reading the principles. I'll follow along. I'll watch it. All these things can help you understand what we're saying, and it can help you live a healthier life. It can help you live a more satisfying life, and that's why we're here. That's why we're pouring our heart and our soul into this podcast, is because we want you, the listener, to really grasp this. This message just needs to get out. We've looked, we can't find it. If it was out there, we wouldn't be doing this. So just stick with us, and we will stick with you. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, and another thing I would like to say is it's not, for the listener, it's not like we do not subscribe to the notion of God. It's
right.
Just that our description of it is different, because we're doing our best to apply fundamental laws of reasoning to not define God, because the infinite is undefinable or indescribable and indivisible, but to find a more realistic and practical and objective approach to conceptualizing this thing that people call God. Mm-hmm. Because this is the only way to truly comprehend and understand it. You have to embody the experience, and you have to have a sound language. Mm-hmm. Just like the ancients, they developed languages around this concept. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to develop a more modernized version of these ancient interpretations and languages to describe to you the process of objectively and optimizing your perception, objectively perceiving and optimizing your perception of this thing that we call God. Don't be so arrogant to think that you know what it is because you've read a few books or you've heard a few pastors or shamans or yogis talk about this, because in reality, if it is infinite, then it is technically beyond any of us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're not as arrogant to think that we understand it completely either.
Exactly.
We're just stating what we've read. Right? We're just bringing that forward. This isn't a debate. This isn't really very much of our personal interpretation. This is really just what we've read, right? And there obviously is some interpretation with, okay, well, this is what we read and this is what we know. You can't avoid that. But yeah, God's a touchy one. But yeah, so that's our first episode. We're going to be talking about the mentalism. Jordan brought that up. We're going to be talking about that in the next episode. So if you get the Kybalion, it's only it's like 80 pages or something. So the first chapter is, it's probably about 10 pages. So it'll be a quick read. There's a lot of information in there, but if you can read along, you'll be able to understand with what we're putting out there. If you don't want to and you just want to vibe with us, that's fine too. We'll do our best to describe it, but we only have so much time, all right, to get this information to you. We want to be respectful of your time. So with that, we love you, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Peace.
Yeah, don't talk to me, it's off to me. Assault police, the archer squeeze. My carpentry is carpeting for all of these false MCs. I chalk the scene, I'm Charlie Sheen. I darken dreams, the carpet bleeds. My pauper leaves a scar with your whole face like a Carter scene. I go hard cause the car to me. You ain't hard as he, or the yard hate. Bar hate, it's the Nazarene. Choking line with a main, I'm a martyr king. Yeah, I'm a god, so it's all with me. Pull at your heart, I'm chewing at your arteries. Damn, for the artistry, the artist bleeds. I'm martyring your darling. It's all with me, get lost at sea. Shout the priest, stomp the beast. I do not play, it's often seen. I'm off the boat, got a blade on me, homie, I'm off the go. I don't know, but you niggas put them off the dose, or off the smoke, a cough, a choke, a puke up a coffin toe, with a whole body in it like a mafia joke. Off the coast like mafios, my posse grows like poppy fields. Got a Glock on my side, but it's not the quote. I got the tree, I got the rope, I got the crown, I got the throne. I'm not the Pope, I am the Lord. Goddamn your soul, the gamut grows, the ganja pose, a cannon show. Plow, I'm a blast like my hand and drone. I control the whole globe with a Thanos glove. Jewels on my wrist on the planet dust. You're messing with a god like I am the code. I am the code, the camera froze, they cannot cope. They plan to post, but I'ma kill them all. With the plan I wrote, the antidote, the man I spoke. I gave him life, but I'ma end them all. I'ma ram and close the brand and palm volcanic rhymes. The man I lie, the fans are spawns. I chant the rhyme, my glance of God. You cannot stop the Metatron, the messenger. The Messiah, the master of the last of dawns, the mastodon, the razor-tooth dragon that'll blast your pawns and make your king disappear with a magic wand. Be gone. The path them on, get a wrapped in gauze and ripped by claws and smash your skull. You pass baton, the gap is large. I'm way too far, I'm past the stars, galactic bars, the acid bars. I rap in fours on tundra sword, the guns on board, Wakanda Lord, the jungle boy. You come some more, come for war. And I made the mongrels mourn. I'm hungry for the lungs of yours. Your tongue's in cold, my stomach roars. I munch on gourds, running force, the hunter's board. Hunt for sport, slap a bull and punch a horse.